Have you ever wondered what durability a level 5 armor needs to have make it worth dropping for a fresh level 4 in raid? Or even a level 6 versus a level 5? Today we'll be answering these questions and more, so stick around and let's get going. Alright, so today we're not going to go through the basic mechanics. If you want to learn about that stuff, then go watch my other video first, which goes into depth about the armor classes, how the pen system works on a basic level and every armor type. Today's video is a little bit different, and we're going to delve into a topic that I've been meaning to look at for ages, which is that of penetration sensitivity. Firstly, before we dive in, all the information that I've used is from Veritas's Battle Buddy. This kind of analysis would have been impossible without the use of his tool, and although I wish I had access to the data beneath, it's still a massive help when looking at this kind of thing, so a big thanks and shout out to Veritas for building it and making it freely open to all EFT players. I'll leave a link to it in the description below so you can check it out yourself if you want to. So, we know that round penetration is important in EFT, and the higher pen equals a higher chance of a round going through the armor and hitting someone. Hence, players choose the highest pen they can get their hands on, given that armor covers much of a player, especially regarding the thorax area. However, around certain values, the exact penetration number makes more difference. Let's take for example the 338 Lapua AP, which is pretty much the highest conventional penetration that you can get your hands on. Versus level 2 or level 3 armor, it doesn't really matter at all and it'll pen through both. If you gave the ammo one more pen or one less pen, the percentage chance to penetrate hardly changes at all, as it's basically 100%. However, when using something like BT for 545 versus level 4 armor, by only giving one more penetration value, this would give an extra 10% chance to penetrate on the first hit. SB5 has exactly this, one more pen than BT, and it has a full 10% greater chance to pen. So where do these values lie, and where does it matter? Clearly, in some cases, one pen is more valuable than in other places along the spectrum of penetration. We'll be looking at level 4, level 5 and level 6 armors, as these are A, the most common armors that people will be facing, B, where penetration really matters, and C, at mid to late white, very few people are wearing level 3 or lower anymore. So here's the chart for level 4, and what this shows is the penetration chance for various rounds against level 4 armor, and we start at 0 down here and up to 100 here, and this is shown by the blue line. So at the bottom end you have very bad rounds that have almost no chance to pen, and at the top you have very good rounds that have a very close to 100% chance to pen, so that's the blue line. The orange line shows you the speed at which this penetration chance changes as we move up through the penetration itself. Now we'll talk about that more in a little moment. The interesting thing to note about the actual penetration itself on the blue line is that pretty much 50% of the entire penetration spectrum is captured by 5 penetration points. So from the P90 ammo at 35 with 38% chance to pen on the first shot, up to FMJ for the MP7, which is 87% chance. And so going from 35 to 40 has basically a 50% chance to penetrate differently on the first round, and it's a very, very stark difference, and it changes very quickly from something very bad to something very good. And this is probably the most key takeaway just about how sensitive that penetration can be around those key values. So in this range, penetration is very, very sensitive, and that is what the orange line is trying to capture here. So in short, what this is basically saying is that if we change the penetration by 1, how much does that change the percentage chance of us actually being able to penetrate a level 4 armor on the first hit? By means of an example and looking at where this actually peaks on the chart, you can see that 40 pen is a change of 11%. And what this really means is that if you had a piece of ammo with 39 penetration on it, this gives you a chance of 76%. But if you move that up to 40 pen, that gives you 87%. So the percentage chance has changed by 11. And you can see then after this 40, it then drops off dramatically. And this is partly a symptom of the fact that we're already at 90% penetration. So there's not really much further that we can go at this stage. So you can see here, this is the peak of the penetration sensitivity. After that it falls off, and before that it sort of slowly gradually increases from approximately 26 or so all the way up to 40. As a few points of reference on some of the most common ammo types in this region, I'll pop up a chart which shows this particular area of penetration sensitivity, but really this runs from SB193 for the P90, ACPAP, 545BT, SP5 for the VSS and VAL, 7N31 for the Vector, and FMJSX for the MP7, which are really in that sensitive range versus level 4. Now that we understand how this chart works, we're just going to go and have a look at level 5 quickly, which is really the same chart to be honest with you, except it's centered more around 50, so 50 pen is the peak of the penetration on this one. Again, I'll pop another chart up on the screen so you can see some of the common ammo types and how they perform, listed in order. So you're going from really something like M855A1 with 43 pen and a 24% chance to go through on one hit, up to something like 762BP where you really start to get a decent chance to go through at 55% using a penetration of 47. Now, interestingly, there aren't actually any other rounds between 47 and 50, so it literally just jumps to 9x39 SPP from a 55% chance to an 86% chance, which is kind of strange, but there we go. Finally, we'll go down and have a look at the level 6 penetration chart, which again is basically the same. You can see this time that the penetration peak is at around 59 instead, and other than that, it's pretty much the same. Then again, we'll have a look at the table just to see some of the routine rounds that people use against this particular armor. So 545BS only has a 13% chance, and M9M5 and APSX only have 23% chance. It's actually quite a low chance against level 6, which shows the power of level 6. You really need to move up into the high calibers, up to the really powerful rounds to actually have a decent chance of going through. So once you get up to 54R, things are much easier. So 7BT1 has a 74% chance at 59, and SMB has a 62% chance at 92%, and M61 has a 94% chance at 64. Now what's interesting again here, you do have some more jumps, so 59 to 62, there aren't any rounds in between, and again from 62 to 64, there actually isn't a 63 in the game, so you do have some gaps in there, and that's why you see the jumps from like 55% up to 92% and up to 94%, because there's a couple of rounds missing in terms of actual penetration values. Let's take a quick pause to summarize what we've learned so far. One of the key takeaways from the analysis is that now we understand why the rule of thumb, which goes use the ammo with pen of 10 times the armor level you want to defeat as a rough pen guide, works well, as those rounds have above 80% chance to penetrate versus their respective armors and are right at the top of the pen sensitivity without going too far into it. We know that penetration matters the most within specific ranges versus armor classes that we're going to face, and you have to make the decision of what you are willing to easily beat versus the frequency of coming across them on other players and the price. But this raises some more questions, such as considering that so far we've only looked at the first shot for these rounds, clearly the real picture is more complicated, and as we have armor damage and follow-up shots which have a higher chance to pen with each round that connects, we have to look into this a little bit further. The kind of basic analysis that we've done so far works best for ammo where death can happen in 1 or 2 shots, which is primarily when using the bolt actions or realistically the semi-auto weapons where you need your rounds to count. Typically the slower and more deliberate fire rate is offset by more powerful rounds with greater pen chance and damage. Despite the way it looks, you can get away with using the SMGs, which typically have the lowest pen amongst the weapons, such as the P90 versus level 4 armor, which I personally would feel fairly comfortable using, despite the headline pen of 35 with a 38% penetration chance on the first shot. This is because the time to kill factors of 1, the fire rate, which both increases the DPS plus the increased chance of a headshot, 2, the recoil, which increases the number of bullets on target because it's so low, or well, in theory anyway, and finally 3, the pen and damage of the rounds that do connect. So quite a few of the SMGs just brute force their way through the armor that is strictly speaking rated higher than the rounds, but with the low recoil and the high fire rate they get through anyway after enough armor damage has been dealt to the enemy. To give an idea of how this can play out, this next chart shows the penetration chances versus a 100% level 4 armor versus a 75% durability level 4 instead. And you can see with this dotted line that the greatest penetration sensitivity actually pulls back a little bit down to kind of the 36 and 37 region. And when you're looking at any of the rounds between 32 and up to about 38, they all get a plus 20% penetration chance on that first shot versus what they would have had against a 100% armor. This is a fairly obvious one, but once a few rounds go through, the pen chance shoots up, which makes some of these 35-ish pen rounds actually okay. It does go to show though that you should really think hard about using armors with durabilities away from max, especially those that don't repair well like the ever popular 6B3TM rig, as you open yourself up to all sorts of bad ammo that otherwise would take a few hits to get through. Next up, let's have a look at the same thing for level 5 armor for 100% versus 75% durability, and you can see this actually moves the greatest penetration sensitivity back from 50 down to around like the 46 and 47 penetration chance. And you can see again, anything kind of from the 40 region up to 48 gets a boost of about 20 to 30% to penetration versus the 75% durability armor class. This category includes some favourites such as M855A1 with 43 pen, which goes from 23% to 43% penetration chance, and 762BP with 47 pen, which goes from 55% to 85%. At some point, if the durability of a level 5 armour gets low enough, it ends up being worse than a level 4 armour. Where this point lies exactly can be useful, as it might determine in raid the point at which you drop your Corund for a fresh trooper or TV-110 from another player, or a Scav boss guard for example. With a little bit of trial and error, we can determine that this threshold is pretty much bang on 40% durability, which doesn't seem like a complete coincidence to me, but I'm not sure if there are any other implications of this currently. Either way, once the level 5 armour reaches 40% of its original maximum durability, it acts pretty much identically to a piece of level 4 armour at full HP. This was kind of surprising to me, as I expected this threshold to be higher, to be honest, but it just goes to show how good level 5 armor is versus level 4. Let's now have a look at level 6 armor with 100% versus 75%. Well, you probably guessed it at this point. The 59% penetration sensitivity moves back to around 56, and again you can see pretty much all the rounds kind of from the 49-50-ish region up to the 57 region all get a boost of kind of 20 to 30% on their penetration. So if we go and then have a look at this one in particular and see where does the level 6 armor end up acting like a level 5, well, again through a little bit of trial and error we can see that this is actually at 45% durability. So at 45% durability, a level 6 armor is basically identical to a level 5 armor for the next shot that it receives. Clearly there's going to be some differences in terms of the durability that the armor has, but for that next shot below 45%, the level 6 armor is actually going to be outclassed in terms of protection and penetration chance by the level 5 armor that is at full health instead. So I hope you enjoyed going in depth into penetration a bit more with me today. If you learned something new and you want to support the channel, then please consider dropping a like and a comment, as it helps with visibility for those who haven't found me yet on YouTube. To see me when I'm streaming, you can follow me on Twitter and Twitch, where I'm currently live twice a week, once on Friday at 9 PM UK time for the Scav Talk podcast, which you can check out the link for in the description below, and a regular Tarkov stream on Saturday at 2 PM UK time. And with all that said, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.